Kami here with
Cruellica Kain.
It's Advent Nebula.
and we are going to talk about episodes 20 to 25 of Ultraman Z.
Wait, you mean 21?
No, 20.
Oh, yes, 20.
The clip show special doesn't count as an episode. 20, episode 20.
And episode 20 is called To Care and What Lies Beyond.
Which is the one with M1. Which,
Not M2, just M1.
which Advent missed, so he can't really talk about that one. This episode featured Bako's daughter, who's a scientist that worked on this experiment for being a gorilla being called M1, Monkey 1.
A gorilla-esque being.
Yeah, he's from Ultra Q. With some of her scientist friends decide they want to take M1 for their own gain, and they end up making the monster grow giant by mistake, and he goes berserk. So we have this whole dance scene of Ultraman, King Joe, and M1 dancing with a bunch of the storage guys dancing and beating the drums and everything for it.
Kind of like what you see at anime conventions for the...
Taiko drum beats.
Yep. For the, I forgot what type of celebration it was called.
It doesn't have it listed here.
But, yeah, so that was pretty much the extent of the episode. But you got to see Bako's daughter and Yuka was all into, like, oh my god, that's your daughter? She's a scientist too?
Yeah, she was fangirling over the scientist.
Because she also wanted to meet M1. Not to dissect, but...
Well, I liked the dance scene of the episode. So prior to watching the episode, we watched the episode from Ultra Q for M1. I can honestly say, if this was an American show, I would think that the writers who wrote it were on cocaine. But being that it's a Japanese show, I don't know what to say.
Cultural heritage with some of the monkey legends, more than likely.
I'm thinking so, because it felt like an acid trip.
You gotta keep some of those Japanese god legends are just like, okay, what kind of plants were you eating back then?
Yes, it wasn't necessarily the wacky weeds, but it was definitely out there. So comparatively, they tried to keep it still kind of crazy for Ultraman Z. Because M1 was just as awkward as the Ultra Q episode for this one. But I really liked the dance scene because I thought that was just... Oh, I'm a sucker for dance scenes, admittedly. But I thought it was just so funny because it was like such distraction.
The only thing I didn't like is M1 didn't say, I'm a seagull.
Once again, cocaine must have been involved at some point in the writing of M1.
I'm a seagull.
Because the moment he said, I am a seagull. Well, I say he, but I really don't know. I'm like, all I could respond with was, I am a walrus. Because anyone who knows the Beatles...
knows their acid trip days in the 60s.
Exactly! So that's the only way I could respond. And you heard me say that. You even then looked at me like, okay?
And then our next episode was, I think, finally when we started kicking off this final arc.
Yeah, this was the start of the final arc.
So the next episode was called D4, which, if you know if you're a D&D fan, it's the most hated die in the game.
It's also the most hated edition.
If you say so. But this is where they set up the robot, right?
Yeah, this is where they equip King Joe with the D4 ray.
Yeah, they had their test because the D4 ray came... I did like the D4 ray concept came from the...
monster from Ace's universe.
Yeah, the Yapul. So I did like that concept that it came from...
Well, I thought it was nice continuity.
That it came from the weapon that was left behind by one of the terrible monsters. the Chujos, and I liked how, because that wasn't the one where the monsters were gathering. That was the one after it, right?
Yes.
That's the one after when they
because D4 introduces it.
Yeah.
Yes, but yeah, I did, but now that because it went off in the middle of the city, and I felt. Because that's when Zed had to save Yoko, and I felt actually they should have killed Yoko there, and made the last arc reflect on why they should not be using the D4 weapon.
Well, Kuriyama, or Juggler, was the one who actually was kind of the voice of reason in that episode of saying the only reason you've been successful is not because of Wyndham or King Joe or Sevenger, but because of Zets.
Yep.
And he was trying to, it was very odd because he was trying to be Juggler of saying, yeah, please create this ridiculous weapon. But at the same time of saying, do you think it's really smart?
This is a bad idea.
And then the commander, you're noticing something's off, but you can't figure it out here.
Well, because a few episodes prior, he met the new inhabitor, or the new person who was possessed by the monster.
By Cerebro.
Cerebros.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It was basically cerebellum.
All I know is that he's even worse than Saki. Because he had he had nothing. No development, no anything.
But nevertheless, it was interesting to see, because I figured the commander had already been taken over. I got that the moment they met in the stairwell a few episodes back.
No, that was the same episode.
Oh, was that episode?
Yeah, that was the same episode.
Oh.
Because it's when Cerebro, whatever, had already changed bodies.
Oh, yes, because he changed it with the other dude. But once
and then the commander comes in, and then that's at the end where he says, where they have the whole stand, the step
Kuriyama
ladder.
is the commander. Hebikawa is Juggler.
Yep.
So Hebikawa is saying, are you sure it's a good idea?
Yeah.
The commander is the one who is going on
and then
on.
the deputy commander, she is just gung-ho to use this weapon.
Well, I think because she was the one who created it, she wanted to, I think it was her way of feeling like...
relevant?
Well, exactly. Because the D4 weapon, in my personal opinion, is very creative. To have a man-made weapon in an Ultra series is interesting because compared to other series, you've not had as many man-made weapons to fight alongside the Ultra.
But the thing is, for me, I don't feel like they did enough with it. They should have done more of the whole political aspect of Zet questioning, is this something that should we be doing this? Should I be protecting these people who are creating this weapon that can just destroy anything?
Well, if you honestly think about it, they didn't really do that in Tiga either.
Well, no, but
Tiga had a similar...
But Ultra 7 did it as well, where when they created basically a nuclear bomb for planets, Ultra 7 was like, wait a minute.
But Ultra 7 is sadistic, so there's a difference.
Well, and then that leads at the end of this episode with Zet's Ray and the deputy commander going, I need to use that ability.
The creation of the robot.
Yeah, leads in the next episode, which...
Well, yeah, because the next episode is where you have all of the monsters.
Wait. No. Wait.
The next episode is when they build the new test robot.
Yes, the D4 incident.
Because it's when they have Haruki and Yoko have that little lunchtime.
Correct, yes. It's called Individual Tomorrows.
And you have the return of our favorite space pirate again.
Barossa.
Yep.
One of the, 19, 20,000?
He's at the end of this episode, there's 9,998 brothers that can avenge me.
Yeah.
I was like, my God, they're like rabbits.
But yeah, he was the middle brother.
Oh,
He's
yes.
the middle brother of 10,000.
Well, middle child syndrome is very challenging.
And then we had, when they actually unveiled the Destructoid robot.
It looked like an Ultra.
Yep.
It looked like an...
Which I will say was super awesome.
Then the next episode was when
also in this episode too, they used a robot to steal Zet's ray on it to power it up.
Well, yeah, because it basically was trying to copy his Zetsium beam.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then so then the next episode is
Prelude to a Nightmare.
where they're testing it and all the monsters are gathering, and then whatever
Takes over Yoko.
takes over Yoko. I did like the scene when he first takes her over and her body's twisting and contorting like Kayako from the Ju-on series. That was cool, but then she started overacting it when she was inside Destructo.
No, so she was just, so she's just unconscious in the cockpit at this moment.
Yeah, but I mean, after she was in the cockpit, she
Oh,
was really
yes.
overacting the scene with the laughter and everything.
No, I actually disagree, but we'll get there. However, this is where Hebikura, or Juggler, unveils his true identity to Haruki, which...
And the scene where he's trying to save Haruki or take away the robot that has the D4, that's the Ultraman clone, his choice in this episode.
Because there's a big battle, because near the end, you have Ultroid Zero fighting a bunch of monsters, also fighting Juggler and Zet. I like when Zet, because basically Juggler and Zet both de-transform, because they both get knocked down. And I like when the commander is there, because he's egging everyone on. He walks up to Zet, who is, Haruki at this time, who's lying on the ground,
Takes
all of
Bailey's-
his coins, and he just doesn't say anything except grabs Bailey's coin and says, "This is mine." No shock that Haruki is Ultraman Z. Just, it's like watching Lord of the Rings.
And then he switches bodies with Yoko.
Which is after he convinces
Everyone
that they're all aliens.
Yep. And ends up telling the deputy commander with the footage from Juggler, like, yep, he's an alien and all the rest of them are.
And then obviously that leads into the final episode that we just had.
Well, no, we still have one more episode.
No.
We have Game of Extinction, which is episode 24, which aired on the 12th.
Which we've talked about part of that too.
Yeah,
right?
that's what we were just talking about.
Oh, I was
Game of Extinction was the one where Yoko got taken over.
Yeah, I was still on the previous episode.
We already talked about that with the space pirate dude.
Yeah.
No!
Yes!
Okay. This episode here for Prelude to Nightmare is when Ultroid Zero is fully unveiled.
Yes.
The prior episode is with the Barossa. Individual Tomorrows, which I was talking about, is the one with Barossa. So I was still on the prior episode.
Yes, and we talked about that. Then comes the episode where the commander takes over Yoko.
Okay, whatever. So that was Game of Extinction for anyone who's not keeping track. Because apparently I'm not keeping track because you're all like wherever. So now the episode that we've just watched is called Warriors Shining Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
Which the previous episode ended. It's been weeks since the new monster has taken over and destroyed half the planet.
Well, yes, because the prior episode, the one that I was about to start talking about, Zet de-transforms from Haruki, and basically he doesn't have the ability to transform for a while.
And he's been knocked out for 3 weeks, we find out at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I didn't like that transition for those 3 weeks. I really feel like these last few episodes were just too much in too short of a time span. They should have been longer. Like, they could have gotten rid of those extra clip shows and just did plot-based stuff so that this 5-parter...
Well, I think they did too many
4-parter.
filler episodes.
Well, that's just it. That they could have done... We didn't need 3 clip shows. They could have done made this, instead of a 5-parter, a 7 or 8-parter to flesh it out better.
So, admittedly, the two Ultra Q homages, I don't think they were necessary. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed them.
I think the one with the cameraman was necessary because it's 2020, so it makes sense. The episode that was not necessary was the one with Ouroboros.
Okay, that's fair.
That one was completely unnecessary, especially with how...
It ends on a fart joke?
No, that was the clip show. No, the Ouroboros was the one with Yuka with her childhood grandmother, but they never really fleshed her out in that. She just told us what happened, not actually showed us it. And then half that episode felt like it was just like, this episode, we're done already. Okay, we need to have this happen just to extend this stuff going on. That, for me, was the worst episode of the series. Well, besides the clip shows. But I felt like this whole last arc was too rushed. They never actually went into why Juggler actually came to this Earth, why he created storage, what motivated him to try to be good. So there's
and I have a feeling only one of those 3 questions will get answered in the upcoming movie.
If it gets answered at all. So that was a disappointment that they didn't... instead of doing these clip shows about the robots of the Ultraman franchise or the other one they did, they could have had a clip show on Juggler himself, having him explaining his exploits in Orb Origin, and that led him to this planet and why he became that he did in this planet.
Well, I think the one thing I liked about having him, though, even if all the answers did not get resolved, I appreciated him because it was almost like having that omnipotent character in a way. Because it was fun to have that character who just knew pretty much all the secrets.
Yeah.
And could play around with it.
And then the final monster's design was cool, but it was too busy.
It was very busy.
Yeah.
I didn't like having the Red King and the heads coming out of their back.
So I did like when the Destructoid did kill the Red King.
That pissed me off.
Especially when
I liked it, but it pissed me off.
Especially when he or she disintegrated.
I would assume it was the mom.
When she disintegrated.
But I'm happy that Haruki was able to still save the baby, even though they're now an orphan. But
and then Yoko finally beating her at arm wrestling. It's like, I guess I gotta marry you now.
I don't even know. There was another thing though. I don't remember there ever being an indication that she had any love interest in Haruki.
I felt that throughout the entire series.
It's the way she kept arm wrestling him, and he was the only man she'd arm wrestle.
Yeah, I kind of felt like there was that connection from start to finish.
I don't. I just felt like that came out of nowhere.
It didn't
but
to me.
Maybe when if I rewatch the series in the future in a
you
shorter
will be.
time span,
Because there's
I'll see it better. But
it's like at first you're like, okay, she's like a big sister to him, but as it's going on, you're starting to see like no. Especially because you're starting to understand. She had suspicion he was that as the series went on, but didn't get confirmed till the final episode.
I also like when they're all trying to storm storage, and Juggler's in the front.
We're unarmed.
And she shoots at him.
Yeah, the deputy commander
shoots at him. And he changes and obviously flings it away. And I loved Yuka's response. You're him? You're an alien? Can I
get a skin sample? Maybe just a hair sample?
And then takes tweezers and is chasing after him. Because I still love his face earlier in the series. When she sees a picture of him, she's like, I want to dissect him.
And he spits his coffee out when he hears this.
So, the final monster, I thought he was too busy.
And then the actual final form of the monster is like a little scorpion parasite.
That they kind of showed before in the first episode.
But you never really saw what it looked like till
But
now.
I thought they were actually going to do something with that thing, not just that it was basically just a brainless creature who, it's evil because it's evil.
And the creature literally just goes to planets
just to
destroy them for the lulz. It's a little troll of a parasite.
Yeah, it was like, so that's the big bad we've been waiting to learn about the entire series.
I will say, comparatively between this series and if we use the last series we watched, Rube, I will say I preferred the villain in Rube much more than I preferred the villain here.
I preferred, I hate Saki, but I think she was a better. But even the cloud monster was kind of cooler than this dude. I will say, though, as a whole, this series was much better than Rube.
As a whole, I will say I liked the characters. I liked having the addition of Juggler. Even if we never receive the answers to the questions, while I do want the answers to them, having him there because the actor himself is so charismatic and really knows how to play up or play down the character very well.
And it's like he's pretty much committed to playing the character at this point.
Absolutely. You want actors like that who are in love with the franchise so much
that they'll keep reprising the role as a certain character.
Absolutely. Because I think, especially in Japan for tokusatsu, it's almost like the bastard child or the redheaded stepchild.
Except for Ultraman. Ultraman's respected compared to the other ones.
I wouldn't say that. It's Toku is like what horror movies are in America. It's the gateway to acting.
Yes.
And then it's like you have certain horror franchises here that are well respected. Ultraman's that well respected one compared to the rest of them.
But it was cool seeing him back. I just wish they actually did something with him in the show.
Now, overall, as for the series, if I look at some of the other series I've seen of Ultraman with Ginga, X, Tiga, for more of the modern Ultra series, I know Tiga is kind of considered somewhat classic-ish, but
90s. Everything in the 90s is now classic.
Shh.
Hey, I like Mebius, and that's from that era.
But
Mebius was 2006.
Well, the 90s and early 2000s shows.
But I will say this is, with Rube, it's probably two of my least favorites. Obviously, Orb Origin eclipses it as the worst Ultra series ever.
Well, you haven't seen Ultra 7X, so...
Well, yes, and I'm taking that as a luxury. I'll stop on my soapbox.
But yeah, I would say right now, for the modern Ultra series, if I ranked them, number 1 is X, number 2 is Orb, number 3 is Jeed, then would be Zet, and then would be Ginga S, then Rube, then Ginga Season 1. I think I got them all, except obviously...
I like how you like Rube and Zet more than Ginga Season 2. Because you put Zet before Ginga Season 2.
Yeah, Ginga Season 2, then Rube, then Ginga Season 1.
I know, but that you like Zet more than Ginga Season 2.
Yes.
Because I would say I'd actually like Ginga Season 2 more than Zet.
It's hard to say because there were a lot of good episodes. Zed started out really strong, and it was kind of disappointing that it couldn't maintain that momentum all the way through.
Well, we don't know how much the death of the main writer hurt this series.
Well, there is that. Those clip shows also didn't help. I feel like those clip shows were really what killed the momentum for me. Especially the clip show that was the end of the arc of Haruki's father's story of his whole I don't know if I can kill monsters anymore thing.
What did you think of it all?
This has been a mixed bag series for me. I haven't seen all of the modern ones. I've only seen Orb, Jeed, Zet, and Taiga, and that's it for the modern stuff I've seen right now. You guys haven't watched Taiga yet.
Mm-mm.
Taiga was probably as much of a mixed bag as this one, but this one was more of a mixed bag than it.
Well, I feel like
Right now, Jeed's my favorite of the modern ones I've seen.
I was gonna say, I feel like after Jeed, things started going downhill. Because I personally think Jeed was one of the better.
It depends who you ask. Some people think Jeed is where everything went downhill.
Well, I think it's kind of because of Jeed.
But my favorite episode for this series was the Cameraman episode because I really loved the connection to Ultra Q and that they kept the weirdness of
Well,
it.
in that one, especially with the wheel, Ferris wheel on that episode.
Oh, yeah.
But the camera work in this series as a whole was freaking amazing.
Still, the best camera work in this series was the one where you have the guys juxtaposed while they're running across trying to take pictures of the fight.
Well, there was that one. There was the one with the Ouroboros when Yuka is in the center and the fight's like being around her. There was the one where the camera was spinning all around the entire time.
Or what about the office building one?
Oh, yeah. As we were talking about, Crystal's Bloodborne would be disappointed with that in the weight room.
Yeah, or we had the fight with the oh crap, the I can't think of it. Although now I could be thinking of something one of the other series at this point. But the camera work was frickin' badass.
Well,
And
so were the miniatures.
the miniature work and the monster designs for the suits were really good in this show.
And I liked the music was really good. The only problem I will say is they had way too many reuse of old monsters, not enough new monsters, because there was only like, what, 3?
The final monster and then two others.
The first monster, who's also the final monster technically, and then Destructoid, and
Ultroid Zero.
well, Destructoid, Ultroid Zero,
Oh.
and then maybe the Space Pirates.
No, the Space Pirates have appeared in Cosmos.
Oh, okay. But yeah, there weren't enough original monsters in this, and they didn't really develop the rest of the cast that well.
Yeah, you had basically Haruki, Yoko, and Yuka as the only development, really.
Well, and Yuka...
And Bako.
Bako had one episode, Yuka had technically an episode, even though they didn't really do much with her. Yoko, I feel, had a bit more.
And we have the questions of what Juggler was doing.
Yes. I did like the G2-parter for this show.
Well, I think I personally really like you, Evan. I really like Jeed. I thought Jeed was an incredible show. So any time I see Jeed in any other Ultra series, kind of like Orb, I'm tuned in more so than before because the actor, once again, is so ingrained into that character.
And now we're going to have probably a toy that's going to be a permanent fixture for future shows with Beliorook.
Actually, I was going to ask about that. What did you think of Beliorock in the long run?
Entertaining, because especially the episode where Yoko tries to pick him up and he's like, I'm bored.
And then she tricks him
Yeah.
into working with her?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like.
When she's like, oh yeah, that's because you're just worthless.
I like Beliorock. But that's mainly because he's a dick.
And it's Belial as a weapon, basically.
He has no loyalties to anyone. The only reason he sticks with Zet.
You're
is
entertaining because...
Exactly!
No.
Like when he defies him. Like when you had like that,
Oh, and the one when Juggler tries to pick up, I fought this monster before. No, thank you.
yeah, it's like, nah, this is boring. But yeah, when Yoko gets Beliorock, I thought it was hilarious because she's like, oh, so you're an asshole? Well, so am I. Let's work together.
When she's like, oh, so you can't handle the fight, huh?
Oh God. But no, admittedly, Belial, I have a soft spot for villains.
So Okay.
or villainous type characters.
Overall, what would you give Ultraman Z?
3 out of 5.
Grown-ups in spandex?
I would say probably 3 out of 5.
That's my score for it as well. 3 out of 5. It's worth watching. I think it's definitely worth watching at least one time. It has a lot of really good episodes.
It has a lot of good callbacks if you've watched previous Ultraman.
And it has a lot of good concepts. Like
Especially having the lag monster come back.
Well, I love the lag monster.
Everyone's going to call it now that I've done it.
I don't know what else to call it. It really is reminding me of like AOL era of trying to watch a
Especially
video.
after you guys just watched Gridman and had the dial-up.
I lived through the dial-up era.
So-
Any monster that reminds me of it is like nostalgia.
So it's definitely worth it. The effects and camera work were outstanding.
Yeah, just alone for the effects, camera works, and the miniatures.
I will say I also appreciated it for the fact that it actually had auxiliary mecha that were useful in a fight. Yes, Ultraman had to show up for many of the episodes, but not for a lack of trying from their human counterparts.
You had competent pilots, and especially when they got King Joe.
And yeah, I did like how they kept upgrading their things like a natural people would do is they are going to upgrade their equipment. And I did like that they took the resources. Well, we have this giant robot here. Let's use it. So I did like when they upgraded King Joe because it made sense.
As you keep on interrupting Advent when he tries to say something.
Well, I didn't know. I'm overlooking it this way. I'm not looking at him. Okay, fine.
I lost my train of thought because of you.
So it was derailed?
Yes.
But I really have to say, that's the one callback I will say that I liked from Tiga. Because Tiga was one of the few, and yes, we had competent allies in X, Ginga, and a few other series, but to actually have competent allies that can...
And an actual competent military force for a change.
Yes, it was helpful because they could actually fight. It wasn't like somebody standing from the ground, and while they did do this in Tiga, standing from the ground shooting with a BFG. You actually had people in vehicles and utilizing weapons that way.
Well, Tika did some of that too.
Well, with the jets.
Yeah.
Because they had the BFGs, but they also had their planes and things like that.
They just didn't have a BFG 10,000 like in Doom.
But yeah,
or Gears.
So overall, it's definitely worth watching. I just wish that it had lived up to the potential of what it started in its first half.
I agree.
Yeah, it seems like after you had the vehicle recap episodes when it just started to go...
Well, and it's a disappointment because I think we've been using, in a way, COVID as a crutch, saying, COVID this, COVID that.
I don't think COVID was the effect on this one. I literally think it was a writer's death that kind of affected this one.
I agree.
I did like they dedicated it to him at the end.
I appreciated that because the one fault I have with Japan sometimes compared to other countries when it comes to their properties is they don't always give back to those that were a part of their projects. But the reason why I can't fully say it was 100% due to the death of the original writer is because, well, the hard part is, I guess, in all fairness, we don't know when he passed in the script writing process.
Yeah, but there's a pretty good idea just from the quality of the show. You have an idea where it may have been. It was around 18.
However,
I think the Ace episode may have been the last one he wrote.
However, I do have to counter it by saying Zero One with its flaws figured it out. Kira Major with its issues figured it out.
Well, let's keep judgment on 01 with the Lucifer
Okay, well at least
movie.
Kira Major.
Yeah.
Because Kira Major is still currently actively running.
Yeah.
And it figured it out.
Yeah, we'll find out when we finally watch the 01 movie with Kamen Rider Lucifer how well that did.
Well, considering it was supposed to be in the middle of the series.
Yeah.
Alright, so real quick. So we've all given Z to 3. Real quick, even though you can't do the first 4 episodes of The Absolute Conspiracy, Cruellica and I will go over those really quickly.
Because they were really short.
Yeah, it's basically 10 minutes an episode.
I would say that's being very generous.
Oh, with how long the opening endings
I
are?
would say it's probably about 5 minutes.
No, it's not 5 minutes.
They feel 5 minutes. Okay, well, nevertheless, it's kind of like the new resurgence of short form anime. So it's a short form live action Ultra series. I say live action with quotes because it's basically people in Ultra series with green screens.
Yes. Well, the first 3 episodes featured a new Ultraman who gets trained by Powered and Great, because they have to save Max from
Basically
the virus thing.
Yeah, it's basically all of the Ultra throughout the universe are going up against a main-powered pseudo-Ultra
Which I
villain.
think is the thing that Jeed and Zero talked about back in the middle of Zet.
So in Zet, Jeed had left to go fight with Zero on in the universe because they're fighting against this Ultra threat, which is what I'm assuming Zet was leaving for at the end of the series. However, what happens is it's basically a love letter to introduce current audiences to all of the Ultras throughout history, because
not just newer audience, but even American audiences.
Well, absolutely. The other thing that I really appreciate is they're giving backstories to some of your lesser known Ultras as well, which includes Belial. Like episode 4 was a complete backstory
it's
of Belial.
before Father of Ultra, Mother of Ultra, and Belial, before they actually became them, where they're all training.
So Belial is as old as Father of Ultra.
So this is definitely worth a watch then.
It is. And the one thing I appreciate, the only reason I'm not giving too much detail is because being that they're so short, it's very spoiler heavy, because there's not much that you can get.
And I will say the only problem with being short also is the pacing is a little bit erratic at times. Like there's at one point they have Max, they have 3 days to save Max before he's fully taken with this virus. So the new Ultraman, who I can't remember his name.
Ribbit. It is Ribbit.
Yes, I know, but I was going to make a frog joke. But he goes to train with Powered and Great, who are from the American and Australian series. And they tell him, okay, you're going to train for 2 days. Well, they do like maybe 2 minutes of moves, and then suddenly it's they're on the last day.
Think of like Team America.
Oh God, it's one of those montages.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even feel like a montage, it just feels like they just start training and then they're done. Like, kind of sometimes what Dragon Ball does, where they start the training and then next time you see them, oh, this much time has passed and we're done training now.
So, it's interesting. What I will say is, if watching short form shows are not your thing, like once a week, because I will admit, for a lot of short form anime, I will wait for the entire season to come out before I watch. If it's not your thing, I would recommend waiting until it's complete and then just go on like a binge and watch it all together.
Yeah, because I've noticed with this one, they're keeping all the episodes on Super X channel.
Because it's, from my understanding, the whole reason they're doing this series is because of how many subscribers they got in the first 2 weeks.
It was basically a thank you to all international audiences.
And that's why there's an English dub version as well, because they're doing it for both Japan and America. We haven't watched the dub yet. I am curious because of Kane Kosogi voices Powered in the English version. I heard the dub's actually not that bad. My only other issue I do have with the show is it looks too artificial, because it is pretty much everyone on a green screen.
Which, that's budget right there.
It is. It's budget, but at the same time, you can see budget. But overall, for being short form and being somewhat rushed occasionally,
it's been pretty good
so
far. The
writing is good. The acting, at least on the Japanese side, is very well done. The engagement of how they try to interact both new and old characters, or new and old Ultra, as well as foreign Ultra. Because yes, Great and Powered have aired in Japan, but they're not Japanese properties. So having even them in there is kind of like a nice thank you, even though Howard is terrible, is nice thank you to the international audiences that have supported Ultraman for
And now that Super Rai
generations.
has the worldwide license, it's a big thank you. Like, yes, we're going to make sure our license goes worldwide.
Yep. And
Well, exactly, because people are checking out Super... Well, I think also Super Riot is proving what Toei should have gotten a clue on decades ago.
So the Guy movie Toei did last night was a live stream only viewing of it.
Yeah.
You can't watch it at all. On that note, anyway, if you haven't already seen Ultraman Z, check it out when you can. It's worth a one-time watch, even though it does get frustrating at times. And it might even be a show that's better when you binge it in such a short
Oh,
time.
I'm hoping so,
Yeah.
because...
This seems like it may be a show that once you take out the clip shows and watch it in like a few days setting,
Oh, no, for...
that
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
that, yes. I
Yeah.
agree. Actually, I agree with both. I will have to say that for Ultra Conspiracy, or Absolute Conspiracy, and for Zet, if you binge, and like you said, with Zet without the clip shows, I imagine there's a whole new level of appreciation that comes from it, because anytime you take clip shows out, it usually helps to keep the narrative consistent.
yeah, there's very few shows where the clip show actually has plot relevance.
Very true.
Alright, so we are done
I
with another
know.
series.
Yay!
And it's the first Ultra series we have actually watched as it aired.
Yeah,
Not to end legally.
yeah.
That's even another accomplishment. Getting to watch a Toku series as it aired legally.
Yeah.
That has never happened before.
On that note, bye everyone.
Bye.
See ya.